Hello and welcome to the Blackout Podcast, where I get to talk to amazing people doing amazing things. And this one was before COVID started.
Yeah.
We've been trying to... Actually, when we first started talking, it was only one book out. And now
Yeah.
we have a second book.
Yeah.
So that's how long it's been.
It's good timing, but yes.
Veronica Post, thanks for coming to the podcast
Thank you
today.
for having me.
So, have you always been drawing or...
Yeah, I started drawing comics and just generally when I was really little. It was my favorite thing to do, and art was my favorite thing in school. So that was really where I felt like at ease and comfortable and happy and creative. So I've always been doing it.
What do you love about drawing? I'm always envious of people that can draw because, you guys make it look so easy. And it isn't easy.
I think, everybody has something that they can do that they make look easy, I think. But with me, it's I don't know if love is the right word. It's just I just lose track of time and I just get so focused on what I'm doing. So it just feels like, that flow state that people talk about. So I think that that's something that when you find an activity that puts you in that state, you tend to gravitate towards doing it because it just feels good to be in that state. You lose track of time. You're just things are just going through you without you having to overthink it. It's just sort of happening naturally. And so that's what happened with me with art.
What was the introduction for you? Was it someone in the family that drew? Or?
Yeah, my older sister was really talented. So me being 3 years younger, I was always looking up to her and watching what she did, and I wanted to copy her. So she was a huge inspiration.
She also drew comics?
No, she ended up becoming. We both had very, strange trajectories in terms of our career life, but she became a park ranger for Canada Parks.
Oh.
And then she ended up becoming a dog trainer. So now she's a professional dog trainer. And art is just something she does occasionally for fun, which blows my mind because I will always think she's better than me as an artist. She's so gifted. But she just, she's like, yeah, well, I'm just really into dog training, so I'm doing that now.
That is actually really difficult, training dogs.
Yeah.
Oh my God, it's so difficult.
Oh yeah, I know.
No,
you just have to look at the way the dogs are
I
to
guess.
realize it's really hard. I see a lot of people who don't seem to understand how to do it.
Yo, anyway, so you draw and then so it's one thing drawing, did you go to study drawing? What, arts or?
Well, yeah, I did. It was always, like I said, my favorite class in school. And so when I graduated high school, I was really, and I don't know if this is because I'm everybody that I know is neurodivergent. I'm probably neurodivergent. I don't have any diagnosis, but I felt completely somehow unprepared of what to do after high school. And I was I guess I'll go to art school because I like art and I'm good at it. So I applied to NASCAD. First I went to Dal for philosophy for a year, and I had no idea how university worked. I just went. I didn't understand what is an undergraduate degree? What is a master's degree? How does this function?
You know what? I don't think anybody knows that, though.
Right?
I maybe, you know what? You're right. I've actually never thought of that thing till you mention it now. Because, you kind of just do what either your friends are doing or people do.
Yeah.
So maybe they should, have kind of a bridging and this is what this thing is.
Yeah.
And anyway, so
I think they should for some people. And, maybe some people have, older, people in their lives who explain it to them. But it just seemed like something that you should just know, or people just knew. And they were I was looking at the people around me and they're going to class and they have a plan, and I'm I'm just taking random classes. I'm whatever, this sounds interesting. I'm oh, world religions, philosophy.
Right.
I'm just gonna expand my brain. I'm what a waste of money. I realized after a year I just didn't know what I was doing. So I decided to go to NASCAD specifically because I liked art, and they have a foundation program. And to me that was okay, that sounds like something that they're going to help me prepare like with this foundation year where they basically tell me what to do. I'm like, I need someone to tell me what to do a little bit. So I did that. I did the foundation year program. I became really interested in ceramics. I really love craft and like tactile objects.
Before, I want to pause you just a little bit. What things did you do in that foundation year?
Yeah, so this was like 2003 or 4. So it might be different now. But it was a really like big variety of stuff. They basically got you to try out a whole bunch of different things and see what you like. So I did like photography, woodworking, metalsmithing, drawing, painting, a little bit of art history, and ceramics.
You've already drawn and stuff. What about ceramics made it stick for you?
I think because it was even more of a flow state.
Oh.
It was just like, I was like hypnotized by the wheel. Like this spinning, and I'm just like, whoa.
Wait, 2003. Would you have been taught by Walter Ostrom?
Yeah, Walter was still there when I was there.
I think that's why. That might be why, because I made a documentary on Walter, and I didn't know anything about ceramics, and I'm like, okay, I want to try this out, because he makes it seem like it's the coolest thing in the whole world.
Totally. Yes.
Anyway,
I remember him so well because the first time I met him, he came into our introductory class and he sat down at the wheel and he gave us a little bit of a talk about the idea of like not getting too caught up in like what the outcome will be, but like just enjoying the process. And then he like put some clay on the wheel and he stuck his head into it and he pulled something with his forehead. And it like came up, his head just like covered in clay. And I was like, I love this. It was so funny. And like, I just like really much like give you permission to like play and have fun and not be too like caught up with perfection. So yeah, I felt very like happy and at home in that studio. And there's just like other things happened in my life. Like at like my first, this is like not related to school or art, but like my first boyfriend that I had in high school, we were together for a long time, like 6 or 7 years. And then we broke up and I was like having an existential crisis about that.
You're in NASCAR by now?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. And like, I was like, oh my God, I'm a very like committed like person to the people that I care about in life. So when that relationship ended, I was like, I don't know what I'm doing. I went to Montreal to visit my older sister. And then there I like discovered this whole scene that was happening there that was like DIY, like queer, punk, like all this like people all like living in these apartments together and playing in bands and like screen printing their own t-shirts and like making art and they like embraced me and accepted me. And I was like, I'm moving to Montreal. I am changing my clothes and I'm like changing my hair and I'm like embracing a new identity and like I just get really into that. And then that was like a big like moment in my life of like discovering.
Had you finished like NASCAR then?
No, I just did the foundation year.
And you're like, cheap.
And I was like, I'm at it. And like I applied, I did feel like a sense of like, I don't want to freak out my parents by just like dropping this and moving with no plan. So I applied to Concordia University and I got accepted. And similar to like my other things I've talked about myself, I got there and I was like, where's the ceramics program? And they're like, we don't have one. I didn't even bother checking. So I never registered for a single class. And I just like started all of these other projects with my friends.
Oh, wow.
And like we started a zine distribution group.
Holy shit.
We were like making zines.
Like how long ago was this?
This was in 2006.
Okay.
Yeah. We ended up like getting 300 people in our neighborhood subscribing to our zine distro.
Holy shit.
We were collecting art from people, printing it. Somebody had like a free printer thing. So we were like printing zines, like compiling them, making distro packs, like every month, like putting them out. And that's when I started like rediscovering my love for comics and doing that.
And like, would you make any of the comic like that was leaving? Or okay.
Yeah, I was making some, and I was like helping organize like fundraisers and like.
How long was this for?
We ended up doing that for about maybe 5 years.
Whoa.
Yeah.
Why did it end?
It ended just because, you know, like people left and moved on and like things changed. And this was sort of
Wait, did you have to learn French there or?
I did, but that was not through that group. Like that friend group that I had, I was living in St. Henry, which is like south west Montreal. And there was a big Anglophone music scene there, and I was sort of involved in that. And I had a lot of Francophone friends as well. But it's a super bilingual city, and it's difficult to learn French as an Anglophone because Francophone people speak English like super fluently. And they don't really tolerate like terrible French, so they just talk to you in English if you're like struggling. But I ended up they have like a French program like through the government that's like free school pretty much.
Oh, okay.
So I signed up for that. I ended up being like, okay, I met somebody in the scene who was like, I'm going to trade school for cabinet making. And it's great and I love it. And then I visited the school and I was like, this is perfect. This is like hands-on. It's like ceramics, you know, it's like crafty and it's fun. And like the best part is I don't have to make any decisions about like what classes to take. I just go and they tell me what to do and they teach me. And I was like, this is what I need. So I signed up for that and I did that. And then I took the French classes. And then I ended up getting a job in like a couple of places in Montreal. One was like a place where we made parts for trains and planes.
You can't. That's cool,
right?
Like, what would a typical day be like at that place?
I would wake up at like 4:30 in the morning.
Oh, that's fun.
I know. And then I would walk to a gas station near my house, and one of my colleagues, Ivor, who was this wonderful older Jamaican guy, would pick me up, drive me out there. And we would do a whole bunch of different things during the day. I was working a lot with like making panels like for the inside of subway trains for Chicago. And so we would just get a bunch of substrate materials, adhere the materials together, like cut out what they needed, like put the trim on, and like we would just do that all day. Occasionally there would be like a private plane like interior or something like that, but I was pretty new, so they didn't let me touch that.
Get like security clearance to work on that stuff?
No, I wasn't working with any like technological aspects of it.
Okay.
It was purely just like when you sit down in a subway and you like look at the walls,
That's it.
the panels, and like the frames that hold the maps and stuff like that. All of that is made by like people.
And this is because
somewhere.
you studied the cabinet making
Yeah.
thing.
Yeah.
Wait, that's what. Oh, okay.
That's when we met.
Yeah.
You came to the wood studio, I think, and you were like,
what the?
because you were asking me the book, and you're like, what are you doing?
I'm like, what are we doing in the wood place?
Yeah. So I
mean,
that.
I guess does it help? Like, how do you, I guess, balance it? Like, you know, doing the drawing and the knocking on wood and stuff. Do you have to use? I don't know. Like, I'm not handy at all.
Yeah.
So it's like when people can do this thing, it blows my mind.
Well, it's like I'm good at that stuff, at like tinkering with things and making things and working with my hands. I ended up having to do a test for like when I went to drive. I learned how to drive when I was like 32, and then they did a test to like find out what kind of learner I was, and then they were like, "Oh, you're a tactile learner," and I was like, "They were like, we don't get many of those," and I was like, "That makes sense."
You need to touch it.
Yeah, I need to like touch it to even feel like interested in what's happening. I'm like, so for that woodworking class, I was like, this is so great. I'm like so in my element. I'm loving it. And then with that job, I was working for like a company that was a subcontractor for Bombardier. It's like a huge employer in Quebec. And it was mostly Anglophone people I was working with, so I didn't speak French much there. But I learned a lot there. And then I ended up like hopping freight trains across Canada for like quit my job and did that. And then
how do you make your decisions? I don't. Ask.
I like follow whatever I'm like interested in. I'm like, well, that seems cool. I'm gonna do that. Mostly, it seems like it's related a lot to me meeting people that I really like and really connect with. And I'm like, what are they doing? You know, I want to try that.
But like, wait, talk me through this freight thing. Like those trains, you just get on it and...
Yeah.
I mean, you gotta know where it's going though. That's
the thing, which is why Canada is so great, because there's only one way it can go. Really.
So you gotta get lost.
Right? It's like you're going east and you're going west. And like occasionally you have to be scared because you're like, is this train going into the United States? I hope not, because I'd be illegally crossing the border, which is not what I want to do.
Yeah.
But I was traveling with somebody who really knew and like had like the whole thing.
Like they don't announce stations, right? Because it's a freight train.
Yeah, that you just, there's actually like people that have done it so many times that they pretty much write like a guidebook.
Oh.
And there's like an underground guidebook thing.
This is like a freaking documentary. I swear to God. Like, do people still do that now?
Yeah.
Holy shit.
Sure, yeah.
So, but like, what happens? Like, are there other people that can you just like randomly meet someone?
You do randomly meet people. Although, yeah, I didn't really click with a lot of those people that I was meeting. There's kind of like this attitude, you know, that some people have about like, because I didn't really dress like the part. Like there's a style and like a fashion and like a lifestyle to it that people can be a little like.
Wait, I'm sorry. What? You're on the train. Like, what are we worried about? What we are wearing?
I know, but like this was my thing. Was like, you know, it's like people look really like super grungy and like all in black and like super dirty, and they're really like into it. And I was like, I don't want to like be dirty and stuff, and like people don't really receive you very nicely if you look like that, which is like whatever.
Yeah.
But I was like always really careful to like, I kept like clean clothes in a bag, and like I would always find a Y and like shower right away, and I just wanted to like, you know, look nice and stuff, which is like not the culture of that like thing. So people were really super like not that nice to me.
No, you're not one of us.
Yeah, totally. I was not one of them.
How long did you do this for?
Like years, like on and off.
Which cities would you go to?
I went all the way across Canada. Like every small stop I would get off, just check out whatever town I was in. So tons of little places all the way across, like from Halifax to Vancouver and back.
It makes sense why you write stories like this.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, that happens in this book, in this new book, it's train hopping in America, which I didn't do as much, but I did a little bit. Yeah, but I would never.
So you finally
do
crossed
it
the
again.
border.
I did, but I
Legally,
I'm not on a train. Yeah, not on a train. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I mean, I guess you do all this. Like, at what point do you now set like? You've done all these things. How do you now decide to settle in Halifax?
Yeah, I think it was like I came back to Halifax after like traveling around for a long time. After like the ending of this book, where there's like the migrant crisis in Hungary, and like I came back here after that, and I was super upset about everything that I saw during that time. And I was like, oh my God, you know, I don't really feel like, you know, just like picking up and moving around, you know. I was like, I want to be with my family. And like my grandfather was like, you know, getting older at that point. I was like, I need to be here and like spend time with him before he passes. So yeah, I came here, and then it was like also a feeling of nice, like, oh, I'm back in Halifax. Like I feel like at home, and that was like a good feeling too. And then I applied for a job at the Center for Craft teaching woodworking. And I was like, this is great, because, you know, I wasn't really keen on looking for another factory job, but with that job, I could like be creative and do my own thing. So it all just kind of worked.
So Okay, I come to your class, your woodworking class. What would I learn?
Well, I'm not really teaching anymore. The pandemic made that really hard. And then I just started doing books. But what I tended to do was be project focused. So we'd be working on a particular project together. And so you'd sign up for whatever, we'd make a table. I was really into doing like more complex stuff. Like the classes were like long, like 8 or 10 weeks.
So what was some of the complex?
You learned the whole thing. I was like, I'm not interested in people coming here to just like try it out. I'm like, I want to teach skills. And so we would start with like rough lumber. We would mill it. We would plane it, joint it. Like you did every single step from like the rough thing to the very finished piece. Joinery, like solid wood joinery. Like we would use every machine in the shop. It was like really intense.
Wow.
And fun. Like I had a great time teaching that class. So yeah.
And 8 weeks, how many days in a week?
Just one.
Okay, so
Yeah.
so 8 how long is the class?
Like 3 hours usually. Yeah.
So do I get to work on my stove between classes, or is just the 3 hours done, then I pick it up from where?
It was like, that was the only really kind of tricky thing. Like there was a sort of like idea of like having a Saturday where people could come in and like maybe do some work in between. But that was really hard to make work because Saturdays is like a perfect day for having a class. And so there was often classes scheduled on Saturdays. And for me to come in, like to supervise or just be there to make sure that people didn't do anything dangerous, which is like,
Yeah.
definitely something I was worried about.
Right.
It's not something like with ceramics, like it's easy to drop in and like play without having anyone supervising safety, pretty much. But with woodworking, with like new students, like I'm not ever gonna let people just go in and play who are just starting and like.
Yeah, I can't even imagine. Like I can't poop my nail. But what are some other like dangerous things in the? Is it a studio? Like what do you call it?
Yeah, like well, you could call it a studio or like wood studio or like the shop.
Okay, yeah, the shop.
Yeah.
What are some things that could kill people in the shop?
Like so many things. There's like, because I was really like, let's use the machines, like, so like most of the machines, like you can really hurt yourself on, especially the table saw, like.
Yeah, the circle thing.
Yeah, totally. And it's like, it's the most like versatile thing in there. So we use it all the time. You like do all sorts of stuff with it. So I'm like really like, let's get comfortable. But people are so intimidated by it.
It is a scary looking, and it's loud too.
It's loud. Well, that's the other thing. Like probably the most likely thing to hurt yourself in woodworking over time is hearing damage.
All right,
and lung damage from the dust.
Oh, the little.
Yeah. So those are the two things, and eye stuff, and like sometimes hands getting hurt. So like usually it's not life or death, but it's stuff to be concerned about. And like with new people who are like really shaky, like I'm just like I had a lovely time like doing it, and I loved it because I'm watching people get over their fear of like this machine. And I taught a lot of classes like specifically for women or like, folks that didn't identify as men. So they didn't necessarily feel like they got that education at a young age or the encouragement. So there's a lot of, stuff to unpack with them and like not feeling comfortable in the space. So it was great to watch people going from like, too afraid to even like feel like they could control the piece of wood to like, realizing that they can do it and there's no magic behind it.
You are like this eclectic person that has done all these things. Why did you decide to write Langosh and Peppi?
Well, the first one's the Fugitive Days. That was really just a matter of like kind of processing some of the stuff that I like witnessed and like did and went through, like that like lifestyle, eclectic, whatever. Sometimes you feel like when you've lived that way and it's great, but like it's hard to find other people who can like relate. And then you're like, okay, I need to process some of this stuff, but like, who am I going to talk to about it? Who's going to understand? Or like, and so the book was a good way of me just sitting down and being like, I'm going to go over these things. And because I'm like really open to new experiences and like following along to see what people do. And I tend to like place a lot with the people that I'm hanging out with, like, if I'm feeling weird about something, I'll be like looking at them, being like, well, they seem cool with it, so it's probably okay. And that serves me well to a certain extent. But sometimes then afterwards, I need to go back and be like, I was not actually feeling 100% comfortable with that stuff. But I kind of repressed the feeling at the time. And now I need to go back and be like, how do I actually feel about it?
Well, that's difficult, though.
Yeah. Totally.
Okay,
yeah.
So that's kind of like the behind the emotional part of the book.
Yeah.
Physically, the process. What's like making something like Fugitive Days?
Well, that one was hand drawn, like paper.
You never do anything easy, do you?
God, well, this is the thing too. Like, and I don't know how this happened, but like I ended up in a pocket where, like, because of my age, like, computers were not really a thing when I was in school. I didn't really learn how to use computers at school. We had a computer at home, but, like, it was just a thing that I was like, you know. It's just, like, I don't know what you do with that, really. Like, write Word documents on it, right? And then, like, I started an email account, but, like, I never really had anyone to email. Like, I was, like, landline time, you know, like we just call your friend on the landline to talk. Like, there's no social media. And so I didn't learn how to use a computer for illustration or drawing. Like, I knew that it was a thing, and I like tried to sort of teach myself how to use Photoshop, but it completely mystified me. And like, I got so annoyed and aggravated with how hard it was to use the program when all I needed to do was just sit down with a piece of paper and be like, okay. So that's how I did this book.
So, like, did you have to write it out and then draw it, or making it as you're making it?
I kind of made it as I made it.
Holy shit.
For this one. Yeah. Like, I kind of knew what I wanted to have in there, and I was like...
How do you decide on the panels and stuff?
That is just like intuition. You're like, what looks good? And you change things as you go along. Like, I did a rough draft, and then I would go back and be like, yeah, this needs more.
Wait. If you're doing it on pencil, like, because now, you know, when you say rough draft, I'm like, you just go and change the slides. No, that's not what you're doing.
Yeah, no, it's like all pencil. Yeah. It's a lot of paper. I know, but then I was like, I guess this is what people did.
Right.
You know?
Right.
It didn't seem like unprecedented, but it was a lot of work. But again, like, I got into that flow state where I'm like, just not even thinking.
How long did it take to get okay, this is it, it's ready to go to printing?
Right. So for that, it was probably like 4 years or something. But I was working it wasn't my full-time job. Right. It was like evening, weekend thing.
But like 4 years, okay.
Yeah.
So how did you even like get it published?
Well, that was kind of one of those, again, like when I was saying I moved back to Halifax and things were just clicking. I got the job at the Center for Craft. I was like, I got a residency at the Center for Craft. I'm like, art stuff is like popping. And then because my godparents live in Wolfville, which is the city or the town where Conundrum Press is located. And my godfather was really supportive of my art practice, and I showed him my drawings, and he was like, you should talk to Conundrum Press. Like, I'd never heard of them. And I was like, okay, cool. So I reached out, and like I met with Andy, and it was purely luck because Andy from Conundrum Press, he doesn't usually invite submissions. I think I just caught him on like a good day or a good time. And he was like, okay, sure, I'll look at what you have to show me. And then, you know, a few days later, it was like a contract signed, and I was like, I'm getting it published.
Holy shit.
Yeah.
Okay, so it's done. And you know, it's been long since we talked.
Yes.
And the book is, I need to read here, the Doug Wright Award.
Yeah.
How did that happen, or how did you find out?
My book came out in like May 2020. So it was like really
COVID-ish.
Yeah, it was like the beginning, like lockdowns and stuff. And so it was a bit of a bummer because of that. Like I had been planning to go to Toronto to promote it and stuff, and everything got canceled, all the events. But it was submitted for the Doug Wright Award, and I did not expect to win because it's my first book. And there's multiple awards within the Doug Wright Awards, so there's different categories. And then my book won in emerging artist category.
Wow.
Yeah. So it was just really good.
Yeah, just a modest person. You think I'm like, I'll change my Instagram bio to Doug, whatever.
I do have that. I have that now on my website. I'm like, award winning.
Yeah. Okay,
Yeah.
so the book is done. Did it, I don't want to say closure, but did it do what you were expect? Like, because you were dealing with stuff with the book. Like,
Yeah, I think on a personal level, like I was like, once the book was done, I was like, that feels so good. Like I dealt with it. And then I realized now I need to talk about it to like everybody who's like, so tell me more. And I'm like, oh, I've already dealt with it. Like it's all here. I don't need to bring it up. And like it's coming out. Like I had to like re-go through it again, like just with the promotion of the book and people being curious about it. But it did help me. It helped me understand myself better. Yeah.
Okay, so how did Hot to Trot happen then?
Well, then I had the idea that I should do a trilogy. I should make this a trilogy. And so Hot to Trot was the follow-up.
So there's a third book.
There's gonna be a third book.
Okay, we'll get to that. So
Yes.
Hot to Trot, okay.
So Hot to Trot is like in Fugitive Days, it's the story of a guy and his dog, and they're sort of like on the run from the law. That's the premise, why they're traveling around so much in Eastern Europe and Central Europe. And they're encountering all these different people and all these different places, and like political events are happening. While at the same time, they're kind of uncovering the history politically of the region. And it's sort of about how this one person is sort of understanding and processing all of that while dealing with their own personal situation. And then I was like, in the second book, I want to have more of a interpersonal relationship story. So in this book, it's the main character from the first and a sort of secondary character from this book, Yeva, his best friend. They decide to go to America together. And this story is about them kind of doing the same thing, traveling around and encountering stuff, but they have very different reactions. And then that causes like some friction in their relationship. And so that's what this one is about.
Yeah, this is kind of like the people are like, yeah, you're not wearing grungy clothes on the train, so...
You know what? I didn't include those people, and I regret it now, and they're going to have to be in the next one, because I should have represented that subculture, but there's a bunch of other people.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay, so did you always know it was going to be 3 books?
Yeah, I kind of figured that out pretty early on in the writing of this one.
Did you also draw this, hand draw this?
No, this one I did this on an iPad.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So what was the introduction to the iPad and creating stuff in there?
That was really like, I have my dad to thank for that, because he's been pushing me to like get digital for a long time.
Right.
And I'm like so resistant to it. But then when my first book came out, I was like, okay, I didn't even have social media accounts. So I started some social media accounts. You know how that is. It's sort of like doing the thing that you know is probably not going to be healthy overall, but you're like, but I gotta do it. Otherwise I don't exist. And so he was like, you should really like try out an iPad. And like, I have one, and he showed me, and he really encouraged me. And so I said, okay, I'll try it. And I got one, and I got Procreate, which is like probably the easiest introductory like thing to try to
Everyone
learn.
says that. I don't even know what to do. Okay, but yeah.
Well, it's like, at least I didn't have to like know any like code or like shortcuts. You just basically take the pencil and like draw on the thing. And
So
it,
you're
like,
kind
appears.
of drawing.
Basically, yeah. It was like, it was still a lot of work. It's still like drawing, rough draft, and then again and again. But like the thing that makes it easier is that
you can undo.
Cut and paste, you know?
Yeah.
So I did like really, really make things a lot faster. Like the second book took like 2 less years.
Oh, so 2 and then 4.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
And now it's done. It's out in the world. How do you feel about it?
I feel really good about it.
Did anything from the last press run like kind of prepare you for the new book? Like, cause you've dealt with it.
Yeah.
You have to talk about it. I don't want to say you've dealt with it. You have to talk about it now.
Yeah. I feel like this one's a little, well, it's funny. It's like maybe this one was harder for me to make because in this one I'm talking about things that are sort of outside of the personal. It's like these are things that happened in the world and I'm talking about them. And it's a little bit more maybe objective, although it's still a subjective kind of take on the experience. Whereas this one is like difficult relationship things that happen with friends and like people you care about and fighting and, like, how do I feel about it all? Like, it was just way harder on an emotional level. And I was like, oh man, I'm like reliving like fights I've had with people and stuff. And so that was harder, but then the process afterwards of talking about it has been way easier because it's less responsibility talking about, my fights with my friends rather than being like, let's talk about politics, which is like intimidating. Yeah.
Okay. So it's going to be a trilogy. Have you started working on the third one yet?
I know what I want to do. And then I think it's going to be a little hard because the third one is going to be based less on my own personal experiences. And so I'm going to have to do a lot more like research and talking with other people. And a lot more imagination. Like, I wonder what this would be like. I need to put myself in somebody else's shoes, So that'll be a bit new for me. I'm not like really a fiction writer per se. So I'm going to start on that though in the next couple of weeks. But then like last night, randomly, I was like, I have so much stuff I want to say about like something else. And so I started doing I was like, I'm just going to like do a comic to like get it out of my head. And then I was like, a couple hours later, I was like 12 pages into like a totally different, not Langosh and Peppi, completely other thing. So then I was like, maybe I want to do this first.
Before the third book.
Yeah, although, I haven't told Andy about that. He's like, how long are people going to have to wait for the last one? I don't know. We'll see what goes on. Maybe I can do them both at the same time. Like you were asking me earlier about balancing the different things. And I'm bad at it. I'm like, I'm so one track. I'm like, once I'm into something, that's all I want to do. And so with the woodworking, I was like, it took a long time to finish the first book because I was like obsessed with like the studio and the wood shop and the classes and that. And then COVID canceled all my classes for like 2 years. And so I really got focused on drawing. And now I'm in that zone. And so, but maybe I can find a way to balance more than one drawing project at a time.
Okay, so, I mean, you do all these things. Book is done. A new book might come at some point. What are the things you actually do for yourself, like to take care of you?
Well, I was the luckiest person ever that like when I applied for funding, I didn't apply for any funding for this one, the first one. I applied for 2 grants for this one and I got them.
Oh.
So I was
with Canada Council?
Canada Council and Arts Nova Scotia.
Oh, nice.
So I was like, okay, cool. And then last 2 years ago, when I was sort of knowing that this one was going to be coming to an end soon, I applied for funding to do a children's book. Oh. And I'm just wrapping that up, but I got the funding for that too.
So you're like, so there's a children's book gonna come out at some point?
Yeah, there is.
Not Langosh and Peppi though.
No. So the children's book is gonna come out, I don't know when, because I just submitted it to some publishers. I don't know anything about children's book world stuff. I'm
why did you decide to
I decided to do that because this one, like I was saying, was like emotionally heavy.
Oh.
And I was like, I want to write a book about joy and fun and like, good times.
Right.
And also because when I met somebody online who like got in touch with me, who's like a children's book author and like promotes diverse children's literature, and we got along really well. And then I was like, he could be my mentor for this project. And then there's like this funding thing came along and I was like, okay, I want to do it. I got the funding from an organization. It was called the Reach Mentorship Grant. And it's funded by, if I'm correct, the Shevchenko Foundation, which is like a Ukrainian-Canadian cultural foundation that funds stuff that promotes Ukrainian-Canadian culture. Mm-hmm. And my grandfather is Ukrainian-Canadian. And so I was like, and the war in Ukraine was just starting.
Right.
And so I was like, I want to do something related to this. And so that's what that came from.
Wow.
Yeah.
You never do easy things, do you?
You know what was really funny about that? Because that's what my mentor and I ended up talking about, because I was like, a children's book. And then pretty much immediately I was like, it was like the darkest story ever. And I was like working on it for a few months and I was like, what am I doing?
Right.
This is supposed to be a break for me. And so I went to a concert. It was like a bandura concert, which is like a Ukrainian folk instrument. And I came home from the concert and I just sat down and I wrote a whole poem about making borscht with a bouncing beat, that the beat like bounces all over the house and like bounces.
What is borscht?
Borscht is a Ukrainian soup.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and so it was like a cat and an old lady who live together and they make soup together, and this beat that they picked from the garden is like bouncing all over the house, and like it's introducing like all these different objects and different words. And it was just the craziest thing where I sat down and I just like fully wrote this thing out, like just came out of the universe.
I mean, I guess it's all that flow state you're in. So it's like it's waiting there, and then when it's ready, it just drops in and you're like, okay, I'm feeling it. Well, you draw, right?
Well, I wrote this one. I wrote the poem. And then I was like, I'm going to do the illustrations to add to it. But it was a really like joyful, fun, like feeling thing.
Do you still build stuff?
Yes, I do. But it's like, actually in the fall, I actually took on a woodworking contract where I made like a ton of frames for somebody. And I occasionally do my own stuff where I'll be like, I want bedside tables.
Wait, do you have to go to the craft center, or do you have a place you
I don't
stuff?
have my own place. That's the thing that, like, for the past 15 years, I've been like, my 5-year plan is to have a wood shop of my own. But they're so kind over there. Like, they let me use the space as long as it's not going to be, like, too time-consuming or whatever. Busy. But, like, I just recently kind of like I'm passing on my responsibilities as the wood studio technician to somebody else who's coming in, who's really keen and like has tons of energy to do that full time. And so now we'll see. Maybe that'll be motivation for me to like finally
build stuff.
Yeah.
If you were going to make your wood shop, what are like 5 things that have to be in there?
A jointer, a planer, a table saw, a bandsaw, a router. That's 6 things.
Okay, let's go to 10.
Okay, a router, a good air filter.
Oh, yeah, because you need to suck the thing out.
Yeah, a good dust collector. Hand tools. I'm just going to say hand tools, even though that's like probably 30 things.
Right! Like
chisels, mallets, drill bits, router bits, things like that. And a palm sander.
Oh, to make it smooth and stuff.
Yeah.
And what do you think would be the first thing you build in our shop?
Well, what I would really like to do, if I could like be 2 people who are fully just doing 2 separate careers, I would design a line of furniture So like a table, maybe 2 tables, bed, bedside tables, bookshelves, like a whole line of furniture that kind of all goes together. I would design all of it and I would build a prototype of each one. And I would promote those and sell those.
Right.
Custom furniture is really fun too, but it's a lot more work to do fully custom pieces. And I can't take that type of thing on all the
Because you
time.
have like the third book and the children's book and
Yeah.
maybe another book coming.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah.
There's this question that I ask and I like to ask it to
Oh,
end the
right.
show. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. What's something that happened to you before you were 17 that you feel is responsible for this person that jumps on trains and goes to Montreal and does all these things? And
Can I ask you a question?
yeah, sure.
How many people give you a response to that question that's like a positive life event versus a kind of like difficult thing that happened?
I think I've had like 1 or 2 difficult ones. Usually it's like, I grew up by the sea and that happened.
All right, cool. Because I was thinking about it and I was like, okay, an event. So for me, that's a one-time, one thing that happened, right? Because I tend to spend a lot of time thinking about the generalities of my life, like growing up in an intergenerational household, like having a parent who is an immigrant, having another parent who did my mother did work in like a male-dominated field as well, and like that affected lots of things, like so many things, which are positive. But for some reason, your question made me think about something that happened when I was probably 8 years old. Oh. We went to the Netherlands to visit my dad's family, and they took me to a torture museum.
Whoa.
I don't know why, but the vibe of the place was kind of like, it's supposed to be like an entertaining, kind of like fun thing.
How?
It's medieval torture.
Wow.
That happened, back in the day. And so I guess for people, they were like, this is a hilarious thing that happened back in the day. It totally screwed me up for so long after, because I was there looking at it, and like in my mind as like an 8-year-old, I was like, it doesn't matter if this happened 300 years ago.
It happened.
Or if it could happen tomorrow.
Right,
I'm like, how am I supposed to know? Like, people aren't going to do this stuff. Like, people are looking at these horrible, like, it's like the Inquisition stuff. And like, there was something about going there and like witnessing that stuff, realizing, well, people really did this to other people. Mm-hmm. People are probably still doing stuff like this. Like, I had all these like thoughts about how do I process this information that people are capable of something like this. And I think that really affected, as I was a sensitive kid, that really, really informed my sense of like, how to relate to people that I disagree with, or like what is the right way to be in this world.
Right.
Like how do we take differences of opinion or like fighting about things, like what is the proper way to respond as a human being
so it doesn't escalate to that.
Exactly. Totally. Like dehumanizing people to the point where you're willing to do something like that. That gave me like thoughts that were probably too big for my brain at that age about that kind of thing.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay. Thanks for sharing that. But I guess, since you dropped that heavy thing.
I'm sorry.
I'm going to end it with something light though.
Yeah, let's do it.
So, here you go.
Okay.
And here you go. And you can write any number. Don't show me though.
Oh, okay.
You have to write a number between 1 and 60.
Amazing.
And
I do like having fun, by the way. I'm not... For some reason, that just came into my brain, and I'm like, I can't think of anything else. All right. So one number between 1 and 60.
And then show it to the camera.
Okay.
And then using these cards, I'm going to figure out what your number is.
All right, cool.
Okay. Okay, we good? All right. So, sorry, I'll just use the arm of your chair. And it could be more than one. It could be one, Yeah. But I'll ask you which one it is. Is it in here?
Oh, I see. I have to look at all these numbers.
Yeah. I mean.
Okay. Let's see here.
Is it in this one?
It is in that one.
Is it in this one? Okay. Is it in this one?
No.
Nope. Is it in this one?
Yes.
Okay. Is it in this one?
No.
Okay. Is it in this one?
It is.
Oh boy. Okay. Is it in this one?
Yes.
Oh, hot to trot. Okay, so let's see.
I didn't know there was going to be magic tricks.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
You ready?
Yeah.
39.
Yeah. Whoa! What? How long have you been doing this?
It just came to me like your story.
Oh my god. That is not true.
Veronica, thank you so much for sharing and for coming to the
nice
podcast
to meet
today.
You. Thank you. I'm so glad it finally happened after.
Oh my God! After 4.5 years.
I know. We've been through a whole pandemic.
Yes.
It's all good. We came through it fine.
Finally.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.